The 8th of July 2011 saw thousands of people taking a day out to enjoy themselves at Darien Lake Amusement Park Resort, about 30 miles east of Buffalo in New York State. The park was known to be busy in summer, and famous for rides such as the Boomerang, a roller coaster that throws riders around in multiple directions, its many water slides, restaurants, and family fun. Tragically, after that day, the park became infamous when the day ended in tragedy, as a decorated war veteran was flung from the ride known as the Ride of Steel. So what happened to Sergeant James Hackemer that day? This is the horrific Ride of Steel roller coaster disaster. Set across 1,200 acres, the Darien Lake Six Flags Resort is located in Corfu, New York, and opened in 1981. The park features 8 roller coasters, one of these being the Ride of Steel. Originally, the coaster was called Superman Ride of Steel, but the Superman part was dropped in 2007, although people still often refer it today as the Superman. The Ride of Steel roller coaster was one of Darien Lake's top attractions. There were 2 of these types of roller coasters located across 2 Six Flags amusement parks, one in Darien Lake and the other in Woodmore, Maryland. Opening on May the 15th, 1999, the roller coaster cost $12 million to construct and was designed by Intamin. Both the one in Darien Lake and Woodmore were mirror images of each other in design, installation, and operation. In the end, the roller coaster measured a huge 208 feet tall, with a drop of 205 feet. The Ride of Steel is considered a hypercoaster, which is a roller coaster with a drop length of more than 200 feet. Ride of Steel has a top speed of 73 miles per hour and features a number of breathtaking drops, not least the 205-foot drop, as well as finishing with a helix maneuver at 500 degrees. The ride was fitted with a seatbelt and restraining bar. Until this point, thousands had rode and enjoyed the Ride of Steel, but nobody could predict that it would lead to the death of a beloved family man and war veteran. Sergeant James Hackemer was a war hero having served 2 tours in Iraq. A family man, James was a father to 2 daughters and regularly enjoyed spending time with his whole family. James had spent a long time recovering after he sustained horrific injuries while serving in Iraq. On his second tour, in 2008, during the Iraq War, his vehicle hit an improvised explosive device. This caused life-changing injuries. Having lost both of his legs and sustaining a traumatic brain injury, James's recovery was further complicated by a massive loss of blood, causing him to have a stroke and spend more than a month in a coma. His treatment and subsequent recovery was long, arduous, and tough. James had to learn how to speak again, learn to feed himself, and also how to write, all from scratch. Hackemer moved in with his mother, who he lived with until his tragic death. She had their home suitably adjusted to be able to meet his needs. James was then a double amputee and required lots of medical assistance in his recovery, but never once let it crush his spirit. Speaking to the US Department of Veteran Affairs, James spoke candidly about his journey, describing learning to walk on prosthetic legs as his greatest challenge. When asked what his advice would be to anybody going through something similar, he said, "Hang on, you can make it. It can be hard, but you get out of it what you put in." On July the 8th, 2011, Hackemer was enjoying a day out with his family, attending the park with his daughters, nephew, and other members of his family. James queued up for the ride and was waved on board by staff, and his family thought little of the potential danger, as James liked to live his life to the full and had been on roller coasters before without any incident. The Ride of Steel wasn't without safety concerns. There was an incident shortly after the ride opened in 1999 when a man known as Mike Dwalaby fell 10 feet to the ground after the roller coaster applied its brakes, but it had been incident-free until that morning. James went on to the ride without his prosthetic legs. The ride set off, and it was going as expected until they came up to the last and second highest drop of the roller coaster. James, as they went down the drop, was unable to keep himself in his seat, and although all the safety features, including the safety harness and restraining bar, were working, Hackemer was thrown from his seat at roughly 50 miles per hour before hitting the ground from a great height. James plummeted onto a grassy area where, sadly, he died on impact. One witness stated, "That is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. When we were stopped short of the loading dock, we were yelling, 'Help, someone fell out,' but park employees smiled and waved. They thought we were screaming because the ride was scary, but then they noticed Sergeant Hackemer was not there. Help was called, the ride was shut down, and an investigation was launched." An autopsy determined the cause of death to be blunt force trauma. Not many saw the incident aside from some on the roller coaster and an eyewitness on the ground who spoke to reporter Heather Cormer, who was on the scene. According to Cormer, she was shaking pretty bad and she said that some guy had just fallen out of the Superman in front of her. James's heartbroken mother Nancy spoke to local media following the incident, saying, "What gives us peace right now with this whole situation is we've had James for the last 3.5 years when we were told that he wouldn't survive. We were told he would never wake up, that he would be a vegetable. And he overcame that, and we overcame it as a family. So I look on these last 3.5 years as a blessing. We shouldn't have had him for the last 3 years. After he was hit by an IED, he died once in the field and once on the operating table." Although initial reports suggested that James had been told that he could ride any of the rides in the park by an employee, this was later found to be untrue, and although he was offered a safety pamphlet for disabled customers at the entrance, he refused it, saying that he had already received one. State investigators, concluding the investigation into the incident, found that operator error was to blame for the accident and that the employee should have never allowed James to get on the ride in the first place. The investigators also concluded that James either didn't see the rules posted on the ride or ignored them, as the ride clearly stated riders must have 2 legs and sufficient body strength. Nobody was charged for the incident, but in the end a 7-figure settlement was reached in a wrongful death lawsuit against the park, which would ultimately look out for James's family. This tragic accident happened because safety advice was ignored on both sides. The end result is 2 young girls lost their father, and a brave veteran who loved life is no longer with us, reminding us that although roller coasters are extremely safe, we all need to follow the rules, as we never know when things can go wrong. The ride still operates to this day.